Welcome back to the Lightspeed Social Agency YouTube channel. I am sitting down today with Naylor from LCR. You know him from his YouTube channel, from his podcast, and I am super excited that we are able to continue working together. I've known Naylor for a few years now. We worked together on service autopilot projects back in the day. And you can see I have a playlist on the channel of like interviews I did before I started Lightspeed. And there is a lot of stuff with Naylor in there. We did some stuff in 2020. We did a remote shop tour because I was supposed to go out to see his shop, and then that did not happen.
No.
But Naylor, thanks so much for sitting down with me today. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's like old times.
Yeah. We've put Naylor in a deep, dark podcast studio for the video today. So
Yeah.
his audio quality will be great.
Yeah, there you go. It's not the best for video, but hey, I should have worn like a white shirt. I wasn't thinking. Got a gray shirt underneath.
But I wanted to get you on today to talk about some marketing concepts as someone who has built a lawn care business, and just kind of pick your brain about those first steps of marketing and how they build into, potentially having to outsource that one day. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about was, how did you find your first 10 clients?
Yeah. So honestly, 100%, my first client was because of Facebook. And in fact, my whole business story started with Facebook. I know that's something that you specialize in too. So it's really, it's a great fit. But the first time I ever mowed a lawn was because my wife was on Facebook. I wasn't even on Facebook. Like, I think I tried it when it first started and I was like, whatever this is. And I just like, whatever that was called, like you couldn't even like delete it. It was like some other thing that it was called, and it was just like inactive or something. I didn't even care about it. My wife was on it the whole time though. And like the neighborhood that we lived in, the HOA homeowner association has a private Facebook group. It's like over 700 houses in that association. So, I mean, not all of them are on Facebook, but there's hundreds of people in that Facebook group. And, people would just ask questions like, hey, does anyone, this broke? Does anyone know a handyman, or does anyone know this or that? Or what, like just helping each other out. So if someone asked about mowing lawns or something, like, I don't know if their mower was broken or they just moved in or something, but they were asking for someone, if they had any references for someone to mow their lawn. And my wife had already known that I wanted to, many, many years prior to that, like toyed around with the idea, wouldn't it be fun to like start my own lawn care business? Cause I was always that homeowner that just loved, lawn care. Like I would just, through trial and error and the Lowe's and Home Depot books and all that. There wasn't a whole lot of internet back then, we're thinking probably 20 years ago, to have as many resources as there are today. So there wasn't, it was a lot of trial and error and going to reading the back of a Scott's bag, and figuring stuff out. But eventually I got it down pat, and I had a really nice lawn, and I was like kind of like the envy of the neighborhood. And, my wives asking my wife, like, how, what tips and tricks can you give my husband? And I was like, oh man, they're going to love me for that. So I already kind of had that green thumb foundation, but I was working in retail management at the time, and I was getting old, and I was looking for a change and all that. So she just knew all that. So she just asked me like, hey, someone, was wondering. I mean, it's like total chance, right? Like I wouldn't even be here talking to you if that interaction never happened. But she was like, do you want, someone was looking for lawn care, do you want me to give them your information? And I said, okay. We had moved at the time from New York to Virginia, which is a perfect situation for lawn care because it's a longer season. It's a more temperament client than New York, where it's just kind of hot and cold, and it's just there's not as much mowing there. So it all worked out, and I still had my homeowner stuff, my push mower, my trimmer, my blower. And so that's how I started, because of Facebook. And then that person became my first customer. They shared me on Facebook, and people just start sharing you on Facebook here, there, and everywhere. And then the following year I left retail. So I was just doing it part-time, the lawn care. I left retail, went full-time into lawn care, and went all into Facebook. And literally the biggest, tip and secret sauce that I have for really jumping out the gate was, my wife at that point was like, let me help you make a Facebook business page. Cause I mean, that's, you should do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever that is. So she really helped me out with all that, because she was the one that was savvy with Facebook at the time. So then I wanted to share my Facebook business page on in the Facebook group because I was already lived there. I was able to do that, had access to that. And but what I did was I created an event. I created a Facebook event. I noticed that there was a lot of people that, most homeowners don't know or don't do it well, edging their yards, like edging along the driveways, the grass to the driveway, grass to the sidewalk, like all that, edging the grass up to the mulch bed. That's just not a thing that most homeowners do unless they're like me, that's like super into it. They either don't know how to do it or they're afraid of it because they're flinging rocks and mulch everywhere and hitting
They'll be
themselves,
like me
breaking
and
windows.
they'll screw it up.
Yeah, crooked lines and all this kind of wacky stuff. So they just don't do it, or they do a bad job at it. So I realized that, and I was like, man, wouldn't it be interesting? I bet I could have like a lawn edging event and see if I can get a bunch of customers that way. So I created a lawn edging event. This was literally, I created this time of the year right now in February. I created this event, and it was like something like if you can get like four or more of your neighbors or something on the street, I'll give you a discount, like all this stuff, like really like worded it really well, marketed it, as this nice event. And then I shared that event on the Facebook page, from my business page. I created the event on my business page on Facebook and then shared it in the Facebook group that was closed. It's a private group. But there's ways around all that. But I was in there, so I did that. And then I went on vacation with my family down in Florida. And like throughout that week, just bing, 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 just all these people just like clicking, accept or whatever. I haven't done an event in so long. I don't know what the current lingo is, but they just kept joining the event or accepting whatever it was. Like I was just getting more and more people that were going to be in that they were joining that event or whatever. And all of a sudden I quickly got up to, and my wife at one point was like, what are you going to do? Like, what number were you thinking you were going to get? And what are you going to do? If you get too many and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't know. I guess we'll figure that out when that happens. Like, I didn't know what to expect, but I ended up getting like 40 something people from that entire HOA. Yeah. That wanted that accepted that event. I don't know what the right word is, but whatever. They joined that event. And then I came
Yeah, I
home
used
from
to be able to
vacation.
like, I think you can still do this, where it was like you would mark that you were going or not
Yeah,
going.
there you go. Something like that. Yeah. So they were all selected going, and so I came back from vacation, and then I was like, all right, well, we got to figure this out. How are we going to get all this done? So I just started chipping away at them. But that was my entry into that, because from that, they're like, what other services do you offer? And so basically going into my first spring full time, I had 30. So I went from like 5 or 6 lawns that I was mowing kind of all over the place the previous year part time. I had a couple in my neighborhood because that's where I started, and then they like had friends and family that lived in other neighborhoods, like further away, and I was just didn't know anything about route density. I was just happy to be mowing lawns and trying to give it a go. But then when I decided to go full time, I realized, I can't be driving all over the place, and I was just doing so much business in my neighborhood because of that event. I was like, man, if I could just I could literally just drive down the street and here it is, like, I mean, I just need to keep growing in this neighborhood. That would be gold. And then there's other surrounding neighborhoods that I can do the same thing. And that's exactly what happened. I just, that they asked, I quickly went up to 30 weekly lawns, from like 6 to 30 because of that event, because I had gotten a bunch from that event. And then people saw me, edging someone's, yard, like a neighbor or a friend. They drive by and they'd ask me for a quote. What else do you do? Can you do this to my lawn? And it was just like a snowball effect from that one Facebook event. That's what was the catalyst. And then after that, I had people asking, are you doing that event again? You doing that event again? And eventually I just like stopped doing that. But that's was the catalyst for everything. And I've utilized Facebook all over the years. I've been doing this for 8 years now. So I've been doing it all throughout that time frame at various levels, Facebook, like boosting posts and all kinds of stuff. And usually it's just a lot of word of mouth. At this point now, I have such route density that whenever someone in any of these neighborhoods, we're in 3 major neighborhoods, whenever someone moves in or whatever the deal is, they're looking for lawn care and they post it in Facebook. I've got 20 something clients in each of those neighborhoods. Even if half of them recommend me, it's like overwhelming to that person. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like I have to contact this
You have a
company. Like
street team.
everyone's recommending these people. I have to call them, or they see me constantly in the neighborhoods and they think that I have more than one truck because we spend a day and a half in each neighborhood because it takes longer than a day to get 20 something yards mowed. So we're just constantly in these neighborhoods. So they think we're just there with multiple trucks. It's just like so many things come out of route density, and also, when you're on Facebook and you just start generating that word of mouth and you just market, and it's a whole combination of things. So Facebook's been where it's at for me for sure.
There is a thing there that I think is really important that I don't know that we've talked about on the channel before. But a thing that I tell clients a lot is that when you play Facebook's games, you win Facebook's prizes.
Yeah.
And when Facebook has a thing that they are excited about, a new feature or a new advertising tool, whatever it is, if they are excited about it, they are going to juice it to make it work. And I remember 8 years ago when I was in college and every event in my life was managed through Facebook. Facebook loved showing you public events. If you could respond to it and it was in your area, Facebook was going to shove it in front of you 100 times until you were like, fine, I'll go.
Yeah.
And so even though Facebook's not pushing those in-person events as much as they used to, the principle behind how successful that event was because you were playing Facebook's game at the right time, the way they wanted you to play,
Yeah.
is such an important lesson to take away from how you use the platform now to advertise.
Yeah.
A big thing that Facebook has been pushing that is sort of a keystone of what I do is dynamic creative. And it's designed specifically for businesses like the size of yours and mine, where our audience may not be big enough to do like statistically significant A/B testing in like a traditional marketing sense. With much smaller audiences, Facebook can use their knowledge of the user to assemble an ad based on several pieces of creative. So you'll have like 6 to 10 images and videos, 5 pieces of copy, 5 headlines, and it will put in front of the person what it thinks will work. And if that assemblage doesn't work, it'll put 3 different pieces in front of them the next time they see the ad. And it makes you look like you're changing up your ads like almost daily. Every time they see you, there's a new ad in front of them. And it's the same thing with like where people will think you have more trucks than you have because they always see you in their neighborhood. It works exactly the same way, where by changing these ads every day, they're seeing you constantly, just always being in front of people. And I've talked about this with Jacob Godar on a past branding episode that we did, where they're seeing the logo on your trucks. They're seeing it on the uniform. They're seeing it when they get on Facebook. They see it when they Google relevant things. Like all of that works together to make your marketing and your growth more effective.
Yeah, for sure.
So you were growing by word of mouth and by like leveraging digital word of mouth, like pretty early for being able to do that. Did you do any of the more like traditional print stuff that a lot of lawn care guys did?
Yeah, so I pretty much did everything my first year. I utilized, I jumped right out the gate with Facebook, like I just described, and that was my word of mouth. Like, that was the word of mouth. Like it wasn't like neighbor to neighbor in person, like, hey neighbor, you should pick this company. It was literally from word of mouth. And then when people would just see me in the neighborhood, they'd come up to me type deal, but which is a branding thing. I always made sure I was branded, had my shirt with logo. I had an open trailer at the time, so there was no branding with that. I mean, I could have gotten a big sign. Some guys do that, but I didn't do that. But like I had like magnets on my truck. I was going to wrap my truck at one point, but I knew it was old and it wouldn't last. So now I have a new truck and that's wrapped. I got an enclosed trailer many years ago. That's wrapped. So, I mean, branding's always been a thing. No matter how I could do it, it was always some sort of branding. So people, again, would see me. So that was all that. But I tried postcards, flyers, like just good old paper flyers. The postcards were super fancy, and I don't remember how much I paid for like 1,000 postcards, but it was a decent amount. It's probably several $100s for some really nice postcards. But I didn't pay for them to be shipped or direct mailed. I just myself and my family, my wife, and both of my kids went out like on a Saturday and a Sunday, a couple of weekends, and we would just go to a specific neighborhood that we were interested in. or that I was interested in, where I wanted to be, like the neighborhood that I lived in, and then like the surrounding neighborhoods that I didn't have access to their Facebook pages or groups that were private. But we would go there and we would just hand postcards out. If there was anyone out, we'd give it to them. We have in our area, most neighborhoods have a flyer box underneath the mailbox. Some people might have like a newspaper box, like it's put there by that newspaper, but most of our mailboxes is actually part of the mailbox. It's like built in, like it's a
Oh,
wooden,
cool.
like post that the mailbox is on, and there's like a wooden cubby underneath the mailbox. So that's where everyone throws all their junk mail and newspapers and magazines and postcards and business cards and flyers all get shoved in that, and it's fair game. Even if a neighborhood says no soliciting somewhere and you didn't even see that sign, you still see tons of stuff shoved in there. But you obviously want to follow all those different rules and make sure you pay attention to that. But there was tons of neighborhoods that had those boxes, and we would stick postcards in there. From all of that, I got like one or two people contacted me from those postcards. I remember one specifically. I got one postcard, like it was a neighborhood that had like a Y-shaped split of the neighborhood, and there's maybe like 50 houses in total between those two streets and the main little section that went in there. And I put postcards in all those houses, flyer boxes, and one person called me that was right on the end of that Y, right? So you drive up the street and there's her house, and then you have to go this way or that way. Like that's
Like the first house you flyered.
yeah, exactly. The first house. Well, it wasn't the first house I flyer, but it because like there's like you turn on the street and then it goes up to that Y, but it's like you can't not see that yard when you turn into the main street. And you either live on that street and you see all the way down the end that one house, or if you're going this way or that way, you have to pass that house. So it was like the perfect showcase yard. That's the
Yeah.
one person that contacted me. And I was so excited. It was like one of my first, added to the 30 something people. And I subsequently got like 8 or 9 different yards in that neighborhood over the years as they saw me established and doing a great job with that yard as a great showcase yard. So, I mean, postcards worked, I guess, for one, right? That one
Yeah.
client paid for the postcards for all of them. You know what I mean? Because, you make up to like 1,000 or so a year, depending on how much you're charging for that particular lawn to mow it. So that paid for it. You only need that one
Yeah.
return right there. But yeah, so I tried all those kind of things. I boosted posts on Facebook. I did all that kind of stuff. Like later on down the road, I did Google My Business. That was a huge thing. That's those are kind of like the all the like the generic, like I did lawn signs, like in people's lawn, like I mean my customers' lawns, and then like like down the street, like in medians and that whole thing. I've
Mhm.
tried a lot of things, so nothing's worked as well as Facebook and word of mouth, which is through
Yeah.
Facebook
Yeah.
generally, and then the whole branding aspect that built up so much now that my SEO is just right there. Like you just type in lawn care and you just see all these different things about my company, either my Facebook page, Google My Business. Those are right there, right? You play Google's game and they're going to have you right there all the time. I haven't paid a
Yeah.
dime for Google, but I do all the things that I need to do. Got a gazillion reviews, all this stuff. And it's just right up at the top. Google's always just boosting it up there, so people are always contacting me from the internet. They just searching lawn care, or they saw me throughout drive through the neighborhood and they type in my business name, and then they see all the stuff that comes up. So
Yeah.
lots of things there that just adds to it. But right out the gate, I kind of tried everything, and a few things worked, but Facebook was the biggest one.
Yeah. It's hard to, when you're focused on route density that hard, it's hard to use AdWords effectively
Yeah,
because they just won't drill down far enough for you.
right. That was
Um,
something that was something that I was really had a challenge with, was that like I was like I didn't that's why I didn't do as much advertising, because I couldn't drill it down as far as I wanted it to be.
yeah.
And I'm like, there's no point in me spending money on this stuff if I'm going to attract people from neighborhoods that I don't want to be in. So I just, left it as, just organic, and people calling and me just, filtering them out however I could, on my end. I actually have a voicemail where on my business line. So when people call, I say that I have the greeting, and then I say the neighborhoods that we service and the services that the services that we offer and the neighborhoods that we offer those services. And if they're in those neighborhoods and want those services, please leave a message and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So that filters a ton of people out. You still get people that didn't listen, or people that are desperate and they're like, can you, I know I'm not in your neighborhood, but I'm close. Like, can you still give
Can
me
you
a
drive
call or tell?
45 minutes?
Yeah, yeah. Close, and they're, I'm in this town. And I'm like, what? That's like the next town. But like, if I'm on this side of the town, it's
Yeah.
like a 25-minute hike to your town. Like, yeah, it's the next town. But so, you still get those folks, but I get a lot of calls and not as many voicemails. So I have to assume that means it's sifting a lot of people out without having to hire a receptionist or someone to answer the phones at this particular moment. That's kind of my free filter there. So one of the many filters.
Yeah. Um, I think like as a kind of a conclusion question here, what if anything do you feel like you've done to encourage word of mouth among, or word of keyboard through
Yeah.
Facebook groups?
Yeah. I mean, really just honestly just doing the best quality work that I can. And, I mean, it's a lot of little things you can do to build your relationship with your clients. I guess that's the biggest thing is if you have a great relationship with your clients, then they're going to just automatically be happy and sing your praises. If they're happy with you and your service, then they're just going to promote you. I've never done any kind of like referral bonuses or try to persuade anyone to. All I've done is sent emails with the link to my Facebook reviews, my Facebook page reviews, and which I did that way, in the beginning. And then when I got into Google My Business, then I started doing that. So I was just, the only ask I ever had of them was, occasionally send out a link if it was someone that hadn't left a review yet, just ask them for a review. Hey, we've been taking care of your lawn all year or for years. If it would be great if you could, give some of your feedback, things like that. And I would get a lot of people that would do that over the years. So I've got a good, accumulation of that. But otherwise, it's just being nice, being attentive, a great communicator. They email me or call me. I respond. I take care of whatever. I send out lots of emails just to give people the heads up, and they always know what's going on and so on. And when I see them there on the lawn, we have great conversations. I'm always happy, smiling. My guys do the same thing. Like it's just try to be the most pleasant person you can be, the most
Yeah.
professional service provider you can be, and then the rest really and do obviously to do a really good job, and then the rest speaks for itself. I mean, I send out holiday cards, every year. I mean, that's should be a common thing probably for a lot of people. I mean, just little things like that, just to show people that I care and that I want to do a good job, and they just by default I think want to refer you to their friends and neighbors.
Yeah. Well, Naylor, thank you so much for coming on and dispensing a little wisdom that is, hard fought in building a business for a long time. I'm sure that it'll help people out. As always, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already, and we'll be back again in a few days with some more lawn care marketing content for you.
Awesome, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, man.